This is the Freud's Angels podcast,
I'm Vanessa, your intuitive counselor.
and I'm Grace, your spiritual guide. Our goal is to help you learn to blend your spiritual connection
And mental consciousness to give you clarity
and understanding to lead a life.
of your choosing. Welcome.
We're glad you're here. Hey, angels, welcome back to the podcast. We are on episode 214. And I don't know, I'm in some kind of mood today, but we'll see how this goes.
Today almost didn't happen.
Yeah, it almost didn't happen today, but I'm here. I showed up for me, for us, for the podcast. So
For shaking
Vanessa?
up the energy. That's what I feel like sometimes I need to do is just shake up the energy, get in something different than what I'm in all week and just like let it roll. See what
Yeah.
happens. Let it be something different.
Yep. Yeah.
But yeah.
Just be in normalcy too, I think, when there's so much disruption. So a key to normalcy is like doing the things that we're always supposed to do and not letting the upset or the disruption change behavior, right? Because it's like it impacts that moment and it impacts whatever that disruption is about. So it's like not allowing it to bleed over into other parts of my life while still caring about myself.
Yes.
And if I was completely like, no, I don't have it today, then it would have been a no-go. But I was like, do we have it? Can we find it? And so it was worth a try. So
Yeah.
here we are.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's a fine line, right? Like the fine line of being like, when is this taking over my life and when am I appropriately sitting with it, processing it, like letting it have its moment. And yeah, it's a fine line, man. It's not easy.
no. So
But
what are we
yeah.
going to talk about today?
Well, so it's not complete.
It'll
But,
form as we finish the
yeah.
podcast.
a little abstract right now, but it's something that came up when we were doing one of the readings, when we were recording one of the readings. It just felt like a thing. It feels like a moment for me right now, and it feels like it was a moment that happened through the retrograde season that knocked me on my ass this time. I mean, sometimes I'm not that I'm not experiencing that. Like I've had some pretty good retrogrades, some Mercury even, where I'm like, yeah, I'm like learning stuff and doing stuff and I'm moving through it. And maybe it's a little crunchy, but I'm like, all right, this was like wildly out of control. But a lot of good came of it. And one of the things that I feel like we were talking about in that, and then also, came out a little bit in our little after discussion is like other people's perception of us, and what we look like out in the world and who we are out in the world and what that does to us, right? Like personally. And for me, the reason why it came out the reason why it was attractive to me to talk about is because I'm in this moment of integration of all versions of me in a different way than before. Like I feel like I have been in acceptance mode of a lot of different times of my life, of people that I've been. I've been somewhat avoidant of some other versions of me where I'm like, yeah, I don't want to talk about that. And it was like, it just kept happening, right? Like something came up that freaked me out. And I shared it with a person who was somewhat new in my life, somebody who, like romantically interested. I would never go to them with something like this that I was ashamed of myself for, right? Like that's not the person I go to, and I did, and I was like, what the fuck is happening right now? Because he felt safe. Right. And then I got like I didn't just get validation from him. It was like, tell me more about this version of you, because, like what? Like it was like a who the fuck are you moment. And at that moment, I was like, there's something here. Like, and I have got goosebumps just talking about it right now. That I was like, there's something here that about your denial of self. Like, and that has to be tied to perception. It has to be. And I mean, you're a Libra, so this is not a surprise. We like to be aesthetically pleasing and, adored.
In all ways.
So, yeah, exactly. So I was like, Oh God, that's a part of me I don't think anybody should be proud of, myself included. And now here's this person being like, I love it. Tell me more. Who is it? Wow. Like fascination, complete opposite of what number one I expected, and number two, what anybody else I think in my life probably, or that was my belief system. Anybody else in my life would have reacted that way too. And from then on, it felt very easy to just be like, yeah, there's parts of me that people don't know exist. And then, I think of all the times that people, kind of talk about me as like, oh, like you're such a good mom. And oh, I wish I was this and like you. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, I'm a good mom, but like, I'm not knocking it out of the park sometimes either. Like, let me tell you about that. And so that was where this all came from, of just being like, man, like my identity as who I am, and accepting and integrating all those cells, and then letting them all be visible and be loved and be cherished by other people. But that fear, right? Like the fear that comes of perception.
Yeah.
So there's a long-winded way of being like, this maybe like, I guess, identity and perception
Yeah.
talk, chat.
Yeah. Well, I think too is that, I mean, I think that, lines up with a different version of what you were saying about the integration, but it's like a lot what we do in IFS. It's about, these little versions of us that have created little trigger or little moments that live inside our cellular memory, and finding them and helping unburden them. I mean, it's a different process, but it's a lot similar in that you're integrating yourself back with that version. You're offering it healing, and then you're integrating and coming and not being ashamed of it, right? You're finding healing in it, or finding you're not, cringy about it. You're like, yeah, okay, that moment happened and it sucked and we didn't kind of show up in our best way, but it doesn't mean that they don't deserve love. And I think too is that a lot of times, when we think about our identity, it's so wrapped up in what we do, and and how we want to portray like our life. And with social media, I'll beat this dead horse. With social media, it is so like hard to find authenticity. It is so far hard to find people who is that really them, or is that what they want people to perceive them to be? When you talk about all these people that are, flashing money and driving really expensive cars and all of those things, it's not to say that they shouldn't be proud of what they've achieved or maybe not achieved, because sometimes it's not true. So,
Right.
It's hard. And one of the things somebody, and I'm going to just ramble for a bit because I have thoughts and they're coming together, but the somebody said to me recently, because I was saying to them how, I would love to write, but I don't want to sell my soul to the social media gods. And she was like, dude, she's like, you just show up as yourself, because the people that want that connect with that will also show up.
Yeah.
It doesn't,
Sure.
you don't have to pretend to be something you're not just to get people to hear you, to listen. You just show up, and then they become expectant of that. Your authentic self is who you will show up as. She's
Mhm.
like, I never pigeonholed myself as one thing or another. She says, I just showed up and I'm a kind of a dick. And she's like, and that's what they expect of me. And it was like, I just laughed because I was like, wow, that seems so risky, but it sounds so easy, but seems so complicated at the same time,
Sure.
because there are different versions of us. Like, we are not one faceted people. I mean, if you think about, Vanessa, she loves her sport. She likes to play hockey, but she also loves glittery and very shiny things. And then she's mental health advocate. And then she's all these things together, and it makes her a dynamic human. But, when you relate, you associate, you perceive her, you recognize her as a certain version that you're connected to.
Yeah.
And so it's hard. Like, I mean, same here. Like, I am riding this Gemini thing to the moon, and because like I have my, my healing work, my my classes, all the things that I want to do and teach and help people heal. But then on the other side of this, I have fucking sourdough, right? And all of a sudden I'm like, getting philosophical with sourdough, right? It's like, who is this
Yeah.
person? And I
Yeah.
have two separate mailing lists with this. This is how
Yeah.
hard I'm writing this Gemini thing. So
Yeah.
it's like I am like multifaceted like everybody else. And there's probably things about me that you don't know that if I were to tell you that I'm super interested in, you would be like, really?
Hmm.
Like for example, I think I told you guys this a while ago. All of a sudden, I am into this rabbit hole on YouTube about fine art restoration. It is a new thing for me. I am not into fine art. I know nothing about it. I am not an artist. It is not, but all of a sudden I ran across this and
Yeah.
I will sit there and watch hours of people restoring fine art because it's fascinating to me and it's awesome. And it was
Mhm.
like, but you would never consider that to be
Right.
something that is part of maybe an interest of mine. I mean, so yeah, it's hard because especially when somebody does pigeonhole you into one version of you, it's hard to allow the other ones to show up because you think, oh, they only want this or they only expect it or I can
Yeah.
only show them this version.
Yeah, which is it's so funny, Grace, because as you were talking, I was having a major flashback. Like I was like, I'm in a different time of when we were doing Earth Angels.
Oh,
And like you were riding hard on the labels thing. Like you were just like, we are going to
oh
talk
yeah,
about labels, right? Because it was just like, fuck these labels. I'm like, it's a thing, right? Like I'm feeling the pressure to be the label, and like,
yeah,
but God, I mean, for sure it was the case for me. Like I was laughing the other day really at like Facebook saying that they're going to take down like your old videos. I'm like, please fucking do, because I'm not I don't have the
no,
time
thank
or
you.
the energy to go back and look at my very first videos, but I need them gone because I'm over it. Like I don't, and it's not that I hate that version of me, but I'm just like, wow, like I
Yeah,
feel compassion for that version of me who really just felt like you have to be the cookie cutter. You have to, in order to be successful at this is how it has to be. People can't know certain things about you. I mean, I can remember at the beginning of every year of grad school, I had to go away for the weekend for a residency. And I went to Seton Hall in New Jersey. And like, so we went to a hotel for the weekend and we were doing like intensive stuff. They would like record us, doing therapy for each other and stuff like that. But I definitely remember one of the professors talking about how our lives are going to change when we graduate and how we are now pillars of the community, and like just giving this big speech that I sat there and went, oh my God, I'm spending all this money on an education I can't use because I cannot be what this man is telling me I have to be.
yeah,
Oh God. Like, I mean, I just remember panicking and being like, I don't have that in me. Like, I'm not going to be like this professional, like thing, I just can't do it. I mean, I'm thankful that I, went through with the program and everything like that and got my education, but it took years for me to drop that. It took years for me to go, what if like you just did it the way that you do it? Like just show up as yourself. Because what happened was like I look around and be like, I have friends and people who love me, even though I mean they've watched me do all kinds of things like that. They're like shaking their heads and being like, how?
how is she still alive?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what the fuck are you doing? And they're still just like, well, we love you because we know your heart, and I was like, oh, there it is, right? Like, that's what it has to be. You want people like that in your life, people who just get you and want to be, part of your network, whatever that is.
Yeah,
And then I thought about all the different facets of my life, right? Like, there's different like, yeah, there's the jock part of me. Like I play hockey. I will punch you in the face if you hit my sister, like, or my goalie. Like, and that's not a problem at all. But outside of that hearing, I don't think I should punch people in the face. You know what I mean? Like, and that maybe doesn't make sense to people, but to
I
me, it's
reserve
context.
judgment for that.
To me, it's like context, and like that's just how it goes, right? But people can't understand that, right? Because the label of it, like, are you a jock or are you spiritual? Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
am both of those things. And I also am I can get pretty ghetto at times. Like, I'm very comfortable in in that context too.
Yeah.
And I'm very comfortable out in the woods. And you know what I mean? Like, just
Yep.
and none of those are inauthentic,
Yep.
because it's almost like I can't help it. But I also, the more that you allow that and you just love it, you don't really care what other people think. And that's the thing that I feel like it gets, is what I try to explain to people, is that when you allow that integration really to happen, you do feel so much more like, if you reject me, that's good, because I don't want people around me who can't love this.
Yeah.
And, again, like, it's not a perfect process, because I definitely discovered, a lot of shame that I had around different parts of my life, or different, times of my life and behaviors I was engaging in. But I can see the value of, like, what the core parts of that version still exists as me today, right? And allowing that to come out and allowing people to see it. And I do feel like some of us are here to be examples. I am here to be an example. I am not here to be like anybody, like just normal or look normal. I am not, I can't, first of all. But I've always felt that, of just being like, freeing people from what feels like prison. Yes, you can be all these things and people will still like you and people will still want to be around you. And it's okay to be multidimensional, deeply multidimensional, like, look like you have different personalities, but you don't. It's still all you in all those places. You're just dipping into the depths of certain things. Yeah, this retrograde season was a ride for me, but I feel very strongly about it, because I watch some people struggle in that area of being like, well, this is who I am. And I know that that's not who they are, and just being like, oh, you're so much more than that. Like, there's so many beautiful parts of you that I see, and I
Mhm.
want you to love them the same way that I love them.
Yeah. But that's like a whole like process, right? Because and as you were saying that, I was thinking, yeah, when you said, know people and have friends who know your heart, that's the biggest thing, right? I have people in my life that know my heart, but it's hard because I don't trust easy with that, because I'm worried that they're expecting a version of me that they've had, and as I shift and grow, I'm worried that they still expect that version of me. And it's not easy. But and especially, you know, it's like that sense of, like you said, like we see people and we see their beauty and we see the core of who they are, but they have yet to discover it and they
Yeah.
have yet to own it. And that's so hard because we want to just shine the mirror and say, look, but it's hard because there's so much either conditioning, there's so much whatever else you want to call it. But um yeah, it's not easy. And I think too is, as you were talking, I something came to me about, even in our families and
Oh, yeah.
how that's a very hard place to integrate your entire being. Sometimes it's not safe to do that because they're assholes, but like I have stepchildren, and one of my stepchildren has an expectation of who I am in his life. And I have grown, like it has been 20 years since I was their step parent. And
Mhm.
I have grown and changed and shifted and healed and done the thing. I am not the same person that I was when I was their parent.
Yeah.
And so there's a hard process of them assimilating to the changes that I've made while still expecting me to be that person that I was in their life. And that created fracture in our relationship and whatever that was, and disconnection, because I couldn't be the thing they wanted me to be so bad, but because I couldn't be it because I wasn't that person anymore.
Yeah.
And that version of me, while valid and while was in her own struggle, and I so get, it our relationship had to go to reciprocity.
Yeah.
Because when I'm not your parent and I'm not that version and I don't have that sense of place in your life and you're still expecting me to be your parent, it doesn't work. I couldn't hold it. There's a reason, you know,
Yeah.
there's a reason why I'm not the parent anymore. And that's and not because of them, but because of different things. And it's very hard when you have those type of intertwined relationships
Mhm.
with family and children, and how for 5, 6, 7, 8 years I showed up as one thing and then all of a sudden I'm a completely different person.
Yeah.
And
Redefining roles is hard.
yeah, and even now it's like it's there, but it isn't like it was, which is fine because it is what it needs to be. I'm not pressuring that to be any different, but it's also adjusting and also adjusting to the idea that you're going to disappoint people. You're going to disappoint people in a way that doesn't feel good.
Yeah, or people are gonna be disappointed.
Yeah.
There here comes the therapist being like, "No, but you didn't do it. They felt it."
Yeah. But it feels like you did because because it's because of you, right? It's
Yeah, but
because
it's
the
because of our
shift.
belief system, right? Our
Yeah.
belief system of, "Oh, I'm not supposed to change." Well, what you have to get rid of that belief system because we are supposed to change. That's what we came here to do, right? Like, and that's
Yeah.
the thing about it is that if somebody's going to be disappointed that they're not getting from me what they think they should get, that's okay, right? Because it's dualistic lessons, right? Like I feel like, we all walk around self important because we're supposed to, you know what I mean? We're supposed to be focusing on ourselves and things like that. So we'll be in the moment of like, what does this mean for me? But there's always things that mean things for other people too, right? And so
Yeah.
while I may need to shift my boundaries with somebody, they need to learn boundaries. And so that's a co-creation for both of us, that my disappointment is actually for your growth, right? So like I'm having to have a boundary, I'm having to adjust expectations, which is good for me to be able to do so that I can still feel free, me and my self theme. And then you need to be able to learn how to adjust to the fact that sometimes people are going to change and it doesn't mean anything about you, right? Because most of the time when people feel disappointment, they take it personally and start to go into a spiral about their own self-worth, which is not at all what's happening. But that's an important lesson to learn, right?
Yeah.
That just because I'm disappointed by somebody doesn't have to take me down that road. And I hate saying it out loud right now because I recently uh, came up against this, right? Like of feeling like the disappointment that I felt from that person was personal, right? Like you just don't care, or whatever that whole thing was, and not remembering what their process is, and me being like, okay, but you need to learn to just take what is in front of you instead of deciding what you think is better,
Yeah.
because that's why you're disappointed.
Yeah.
Actually. Right? And so that dualistic lesson thing is a real thing, but it is, again, it's hard, especially when disappointing people has come with consequences in your
Yeah.
past, right? Like deep consequences because people could have control over you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think too, it's hard because sometimes the reason why people need you to be that is because they're in survival and they're in trauma and they
Sure,
need you to be their safe person. And when you're
sure,
not that version, it's hard for them because it doesn't feel safe.
sure.
And it's like when you're the one person that is like the same, it's hard. But at
Mhm.
the same time, but it's not our role to be that person for them all the time. Absolutely. But yeah, there's a lot of nuances in that. And
Yes, that's crazy.
yeah. Yeah. And I think, one of the things that I've always struggled with is, when they in school, when they ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's like, I don't know. I could never answer that question. I could never
Mhm,
answer it. I
mhm.
mean, the only way I came close to it was to be a nurse. Guess what, guys? I'm not a nurse. I would have been if my mother hadn't have gaslit me to not do it. But um, I, yeah, it's hard because how do we define who we want to be or what we want to
Yeah,
be? Yes, absolutely we can define. I want to be an open-hearted, loving, warm, kind person who has compassionate for all walks of life, and that who operates from the heart, and who also knows how to set boundaries. That's my caveat, because that's something that I always struggled to do until recently. Um, but yeah, it's hard because I think for me, I don't want to be defined. I'm too much of an air sign.
Oh,
I
100%.
I don't want to be defined as one thing. I'm many
Mhm.
things. I'm a,
Yeah.
I'm a healer, a teacher, I'm a writer, I'm also a baker, a sourdough baker. I'm also a cat mom. you know,
Yeah.
I'm a whole bunch of different things. I love cars. I love like so it's hard for me to choose one, for to the sake of appeasing people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I when I think of theme songs, I think of Whitney Houston, "I'm Every Woman." Like
Yeah.
that's just like my jam. Like I'm like, yeah, that's like if I was a wrestler, that'd be my entrance song, which I mean, typical, right? Like it's not what
Coming
an
out in
entrance song
feathers
should be,
and
but I would
glitter.
say, well, that's mine. That's the persona. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Because to me, I can't be anything more than that. Like it's
Right.
a dull life to not allow all of those pieces to exist. But I can see why people do it, because it is like sometimes survival. Sometimes you can't be, you know, what all of those things, because there's people around you, or there's belief systems that are in place that may be somewhat true. You know what I mean? There are people in professions that probably would get fired if they did certain things, right? But obviously, to me, it always comes down to, if that is in the way of your freedom, then let's figure out how to create something that gives you both. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And like, so you can have that, and then you can also be you. I know it's not easy. That's why people struggle with it, and why I struggle with it. But it's like, bringing it back around to like, why the hell did we come here? Right? Like, we did not come here to not evolve. Like, we did not come here to pick one thing at 15 years old and be that forever.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was a little kid, I wanted to be two things, of course. Surprise, I couldn't pick one. I wanted to be a hairdresser and a welder.
Nice.
I was like, that would be so cool, right? So obviously we got the Libra aesthetics thing. Like I loved hair, nails, and stuff like that. I was doing that when I was younger. And then my dad was a welder, and I thought it was amazing that he could just put like metal together, and like, I mean, I thought that was cool as hell. And he told me to go to college and get a real job. And unfortunately, I did that instead of going into welding, so I could put myself through college and not have student loans, because that's a really well-paying career when you're in a union. But anyway, just like thinking back on that and being like, some of those core little parts of us, that just we were full of wonder, and we had reasons for being what we wanted to be. And then we would change our minds, right? Because we were little kids. We were like, no, now I want to be a firefighter. And now I want to be whatever, because we were allowed to try on all of those things. And for some reason, as adults, we decide that's not the truth. Like, now you got to pick one thing. You got to be that forever. If you change, everybody's going to call you fake, like,
Yeah.
oh God, all of it. I mean, I've had to go through so much of it. And again, still going through it, of what does that mean? The word fraud comes up all the time when you think about that, right? Like, if people know that I'm doing that, like, it's funny. Here's a perfect example. I talk like all the time about, being intentional with our words. And I was not intentional with my words a couple weeks ago, because I was very angry with somebody. And 2 days ago, I remember distinctly, 2 days ago, I said, how would you feel if that person leaked those screenshots of what you said? And I was like, that would not feel great. However, I do feel like at this point in my life, I could own it. And I could say,
Yeah.
that's why you also see me processing in podcasts and processing in my online presence, is because I know that happened. And I know that I don't want to show up in that way, but it happened, and I have compassion for it, and it sucks. And like, embarrassment isn't like what it used to be for me.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like, I'm just like, yeah, I'm not going to do everything exactly the way I intend sometimes, because I get it. Emotion takes over, and that's just I don't want it to happen to that extent anymore, but that's why I'm going to try to learn how not to do that. Right. And that, to me, when I sat with myself and said that, I was like, that is major, because that's never been me. I've always been trying to protect my image, right? Like, and being afraid that somebody was gonna, like, at some point be like, yeah, well, one time I got in a fight with her and she said this, and people be like, oh my God, she's trying to teach kindness and she's not kind. Like, no, I'm trying to teach humanness, and I'm trying to teach skills, and I'm trying to teach patience with yourself and your process and compassion and all of that, And so, I mean, I feel like that deepened my desire to show up that way for other people, to have permission to
Right.
do things, quote unquote, imperfectly, which is perfectly, because it's process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think too is that, well, that evolves too, because there's reasons, there's meaning made behind being wrong or doing something bad, and it's impacted our life in some way as we grew up, and it it was hard, and it's hard, and even sometimes I find it hard to be perceived, or to have that sense of somebody thinks I'm not, like, I just started teaching a class, my own class, yesterday, and the conversations in my head, I'm worrying what people thought, worrying whether they thought it was valuable enough to pay the money that they paid to teach, to learn with me, and worrying about what I'm offering them. And so, like, their thought matters to me, and in a healthy way, but also in a little bit of an unhealthy way, because I'm like, not like, I was struggling standing in my truth and in my knowing that this was all spirit led. It really had less to do with me and more to do with spirit, but at the same time, I'm the messenger.
Yeah, you're a
Um,
conduit.
and so it's can be rough and it can be difficult, and just, but knowing what that is and why that is, it's a little easier to support the self, and to being like, yeah, it sucks when people don't like us, but we do what we do because we're here to do it. And it's hard because I don't like being perceived in a way that I'm not liked, if that
Yeah,
makes sense. Because
that kind of makes sense.
if you were if you when you were a kid, if they didn't like you and you were the target, you were neglected, you just, it was awful. And so survival meant being liked and people pleasing.
Oh,
I
100%.
Yeah.
My whole life. I became an achiever, and it became safe, and I was like, all right, cool. Like, you're going to do that. You're going to be an achiever, and then you're going to be super kind, and people are going to love that. And you're going to be super accepting, and people are going to love that. And then before I knew it, I was stuck in adoration as, like, the only possible thing I could receive from people, because anything other than adoration was like just invalidation. Literally anything. I mean, even indifference was like, I need to get them to like me.
Yes.
Right? Like, I remember going through it during the rebellion. I got called the
Yeah.
rebellion after the marriage broke up, and I would chase people's validation just to get it. And it sucks. Again, like, talking about saying things out loud and being like, damn it, I did it. And then I would
Yeah.
be fine. Like, I would be glad that I got it, but then I didn't want to follow through, because I was only there for the dopamine hit, or the ego stroke. I didn't know any better back then. Now it's horrifying, right? Like, now I'm like, I don't even want to talk to people unless I think that I like them, because I don't want them to be hurt.
Yeah.
It's like the total opposite. Like, or
Yeah.
when they say, oh my God, look at what you do. I'm like, don't look at what I do. Like, just, it's fine, that feeling that opposite. But yeah, I mean, I used to really love being adored, and was so afraid of what would happen if I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm glad that that shifted, because God, it's so much easier to just be like, whatever.
I know.
Like, it's fine. You'll go find your people, and I'm not your people. I don't want you to be here if you don't want to be here, or if you don't like me. I'm going to irritate you, and I don't want to irritate you. I don't want anybody to be irritated. Go find your people that don't irritate you.
Yeah.
I'm not it. Right. Like,
Yeah.
but years and years and years of work on myself, and being brave, like just putting myself out there, and then you like throw the blanket over your head, like,
Yeah.
oh God, what's gonna happen? And then nothing happens, and you're like, all right, it might be safe. Like, I'll peek out and I'll do it again, and I'll do it again. And now here I am where I can't shut up. You want to see what I did today? Here you go. Want to see how I
Yeah.
fucked up today? Here you go.
I know. In my classes, I'm like, well, y'all know that I'm transparent. And so like I just share everything. And I'm like, yeah, it's like we live through example of how to like that life is messy, but we can be okay while life is messy.
Yeah. And then we can grow from it and not just be it. Because I think that that's the other part of it, is that I felt like I was going to get stuck in those personas, right? Like, so if I showed up that way, if I showed up with my mess, that people would just see the mess, right? Like, and that was my fear. But then, I started to have those conversations with people, and they were like, no, no, no. What's awesome is that you are that you are a mess. But you also manage to get out of all of your messes. You also manage to be like, you don't let them take you under. You're still happy and hopeful and joyful. And, like that's the thing. Like, that's the thing that makes me feel good and makes me feel hopeful for myself, is that everything doesn't have to feel dark and horrible just because you made a big mistake. And I was like, oh, all this time I was trying to be perfect.
Yeah.
And it was so hard. And all I had to do was tell you how I fucked up, and then how I got out of it. That's it.
Yeah, accountability is something that I've been working on for the last couple of years. Not that I wasn't before, but like uber accountability, but not from a place of like, oh my God, I'm sorry, I'm a horrible person. I should be self-flagellated. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's more from a place of, wow, I fucked up and I'm sorry. That was awful. Or I didn't mean to do that, but I am sorry that that happened, because it's just that sense of offering that person the space of validation and their feelings of how what I did impacted them. And that's been pretty big for me, because I think I've experienced it in a couple places, and I felt how healing that was for me. And that's why I've just been kind of like super aware of trying to be accountable for things that I've done that have impacted people. Not that we can control how it does, but we can at least, if it is a negative impact or a disruptive impact, that we can at least say, wow, I'm sorry, because we don't want it to impact them. But yeah.
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 And I love the idea of accountability in all kinds of different ways in this conversation, because there's so many things of living in absolutes that I think
Yeah.
I've learned even recently moving here, just absolutes and how damaging they are to us, right? Like, my belief that I couldn't live off the coast. I mean, that sounds dumb to people, but I was really terrified of it. I mean, I love the ocean. I love the healing properties of it. I just never committed to living away from it. And that is an environment thing for me. That is a comfort thing for me. And so I would say that I couldn't do it. And then that was an absolute for me. And then it wasn't. And then I had to just go and be like, y'all, I guess I was wrong. Because I don't feel what I thought I was going to feel, right? And that's part of the accountability, right? Like, don't make excuses. Don't push yourself back somewhere because now you feel like embarrassed that you made declarations that weren't true. Like, whatever, dude. We make declarations because we feel it in that moment. And
Yeah.
we're allowed to make new declarations when we get more information. That's the problem in our world and society, is that we don't allow for that growth to happen in whatever timeline it's supposed to happen in. We
Yeah.
are really weird about it. And that to me has been like a game changer, of being able to say, this is not wrong. This is not what we were taught, right? Like, there are fine lines, of course, right? Everywhere, of like what a manic episode is and what, just flow is. Fine line for me sometimes.
Right.
But, being able to show up and say, I'm not that person anymore, or I've grown, or I've learned something that has made me into a new version of me. Here, let me share that with you too.
Yeah.
That doesn't negate the fact that the previous version of me was absolutely 100% me too, but
Yep.
I have more information, or I have a new dream, or I have a new focus, right? So that's what I'm going to roll with.
Yeah.
It's yeah, definitely created different accountabilities for me too. Just being like, man, like living in the absolute sucks. You can still make your declarations, but
Yeah.
it's fine if they change.
For sure. For sure. You're okay. It's okay to evolve, and find the people that celebrate your bigness, whatever
Yeah.
that bigness is, the energy, your personality, whatever it is. You know, I mean, I'm not a Libra, that's for sure. I'm not flamboyant and like super big in that energy, but I'm a big person. When you come and talk to me about certain things, I will be big in energy and I'll be like talk your ear off. Like we will have hours of conversation. So each
Mhm.
of us has a bigness somewhere, and like just lean into the people that celebrate your bigness, right? The
Yeah.
the energy that you bring in all the places. And even if, I'm not, I don't have energy in certain places, but that doesn't mean that that's not a place to be celebrated too. So,
Right. Mhm.
yeah.
100%. Love
Yeah.
it. Mm-mm-mm. Delicious.
So we celebrate you and your bigness and all that you are and all versions of you, no matter what came before this version. All of them are valid and all of them are important because they're what make you you in your dynamicness. And yeah, we celebrate you and we're so glad you're here with us. So thanks for being here, and we will see you in a couple weeks.
Yes. Love you.
Thanks for listening. We hope we gave you something to support your journey. Check out our Facebook or Instagram page to connect with us. Have a great week. Thanks for